Hi, today I'm going to be talking about how to lift a fingerprint from a crime scene or a piece of evidence. So I personally have lifted fingerprints from not necessarily evidence, but in my class at CTech that I went to for criminal justice, I have personally lifted fingerprints from different objects and been able to find them. So first steps to go about, just to briefly go through the steps of lifting a fingerprint. First, you have to find it, and then you collect your supplies, and then after that, you start to lift your fingerprint, and then you will place your fingerprint on your sheet, and then you will take it back to the lab, wherever that would be, and the lab will then identify or send it through AFIS, which is the Integrated Automated Fingerprint Identification System, which I'll talk about later. So, going into the steps, in order to find your fingerprint, you will mainly look for on a piece of evidence or next to a piece of evidence or somewhere around a crime scene that you, as like either detective or law enforcement, think that there would be a fingerprint. So first, the next thing you have to do is make sure you have all your supplies. So some of the supplies would be a fingerprinting brush, which is normally made out of horsehair because of how fine it is, and it helps to put the powder onto the fingerprint. And with the powder, so fingerprinting powder can comes in different colors, or there's different types. There's some that are even magnetic. But right now I'm just going to be talking about just the basic fingerprinting powder. Normally it's black, and just because it's the easiest thing to show up on. But if you have like a dark surface, they also have white fingerprinting powder in order to so it's better identified. Then you will also need your fingerprint lifting tape, which it's a specific tape that is good for lifting the powder off of the fingerprint after you have put the powder on there. Then after that, you also have the sheet which you place the fingerprint tape onto, and you also need an evidence bag in order to put the sheet into, in order to take it back to the lab, and you'll have to have a writing utensil in order to write down where the fingerprint was, and and also in case you need it to write on the fingerprinting sheet. So going into lifting the fingerprint, first thing you do is you take your brush and you get a little bit of the powder on your brush, and you will gently apply some of the powder onto the fingerprint that you found, and you just ever so gently put it on there until it's visible to you. Then after that, you will take your fingerprinting tape and ever so gently place it onto the fingerprint. You don't want to push too hard in order so you don't smudge the fingerprint and so you don't have to lift it again, because if you smudge the fingerprint, then you can't use that fingerprint, and you've kind of contaminated the evidence, but also not really, because you can maybe find other fingerprints, but also it is a piece of evidence that you might no longer have. So after you place the tape, then you will lift the tape off of the fingerprint, and then you will take that piece of tape and place it onto your fingerprinting sheet. And you want to push down just gently. You don't want to rub it, because again that can smudge the fingerprint on the paper, and then you will have to discard that paper and possibly try again to lift the fingerprint again if you're able to. So then after you have placed the tape on there, then you will gently lift the tape off of the paper and look at the fingerprint, make sure you can see identifying marks on there, and then you will take the fingerprinting sheet and place it in an evidence bag, and you will, as I said, you will write down what the fingerprint was lifted off of, where in the crime scene it could have been found, and also the date that you lifted it, and any other identifying features that might be helpful in order to identify things about the fingerprint. After that, you will take the evidence bag. Once you clean up the crime scene, then you'll take all the evidence in the fingerprint evidence bag. Then you'll take that back to the lab, wherever that might be, and they will go through and identify the different types of fingerprints, which those are a whorl, a loop, or an arch. And there are different types within each one of those, um, which that can be something for another time, going into depth about the different types of fingerprints. But nowadays we have APHIS, which pretty much does that for us. It will go through and identify the different types, like different features in the fingerprint in order to figure out who the fingerprint belongs to. So APHIS, as I said earlier, is the Integrated Automated Fingerprint Identification System, which they use that to help identify, either to confirm or rule out if the fingerprint matches someone that could have been at the crime scene or we weren't sure that was at the crime scene. And you can use that to help bring in possible suspects to interview them or question them about why they were at the crime scene or why they had been touching that piece of evidence in order to help solve the crime. So pretty much in conclusion, the process of lifting a fingerprint, it might seem easy, but also it does take time. It does take skill to actually lift the fingerprint. Um, Again, it takes time to learn how to do it and how to do it properly. Because if you don't do it properly, it can cause you to look bad on your part as an officer or law enforcement or detective, because it shows that you might not be able to do your job as well. And you want to make sure, especially in that line of work, you want to make sure that you can do your job well. So just going back over the steps really quick, you have to find your fingerprint, then you collect all your supplies, and then you will start to lift the fingerprint, and then after you lift it, you will place it back onto the fingerprint sheet, and after you have done that, then you will take the sheet back to the lab for it to be analyzed, and then after it's analyzed, another thing of analyzing it is also running it through APHIS, which will help identify who the criminal could be or could not be. Thank you.